The game I am reviewing today in this insanely hot day in beautiful Bloomington, Indiana is Mountain of Inferno, a card game by Z-Man. It is loosely based on the traditional Chinese novel Journey to the West, very loosely based. If you had to write a paper about that novel, don't think you can get away by playing this game instead of reading the novel. They will catch you immediately. It is very small, as you can see, very inexpensive. Usually you can find it for $10 or less. It is a card game slash board game because you have cards in your hand and you have an aspect of hand management, but then those cards will form the board where the actual action takes place. So you have both of those aspects, which I really like. Most importantly though, why am I talking about this game? Because this is the game that in my household gets played more often than any other game. Very simple reason, it is my wife's single favorite game. My wife would agree to play games with me when I ask, but this is the one game that actually she would ask me, well, why don't you play? We haven't played it in like a day and a half. I was like, oh yeah, let us play more. So luckily enough I like it, but that already tells you that this is a game that can appeal to non-gamers, but also can be a light and extremely entertaining, amusing diversion for more involved and serious gamers. So without further ado, let's take a closer look at Mountain of Inferno. The deck has two types of cards. The Disciples, which are these four cards here at the bottom, the horse, the soldier, the pig, and the monkey. They have different names in the Chinese tradition, but that's the way we familiarly call them. And these cards will actually be played on the table. They will stay on the table. They will form the board where the game will take place. And then you have another category of cards, these demons here, the Buffalo King demon, and the Princess Iron Fan, Red Boy, and the Savior. These cards are played but do not stay on the table. They generate effects that will change things on the board, but then they go away. To set up the game, you place face up on the table 2 rows of Disciple cards, only Disciples. If you flip demons, then you just shuffle them back in the deck. And these 2 rows of Disciples have as many cards as the number of players. For example, here I've set up the game for 3 players, then you have 2 rows of 3 cards each. Then each player places his player token on one of the cards, each player receives a hand of 3 cards, and you're ready to start playing. The first thing that you do in a turn is to play cards from your hands. If you have Disciples, then you can play 1. Doesn't matter how many you have in a turn, you can always only play 1 Disciple. To play a Disciple card, you simply place it on the table and you attach it adjacent to any other card that is already on the table, as long as it is not adjacent only in a diagonal way. So this would be an illegal move, but you can attach this card here, 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 here. You can see there's a variety of positions in which that card could be attached. So suppose in my turn I decide to attach the card there, then other things happen during the turn, then next turn another player decides to attach the card there, other things happen, but then another turn somebody attaches a card there, and then somebody else does this, and then maybe somebody attaches a card there, and maybe another card here. So actually throughout the game the board will grow and will develop in different ways, and this board has a very important tactical spatial significance. It really works like a board that the players are creating throughout the game, and it's pretty cool that each game you will have a different configuration, and different configurations will create a lot of different challenges every time that you play. But as the Disciples are trying to create certain configurations on the table, and I'll explain later what the players are trying to achieve by placing those Disciples, in the meanwhile the demons are trying to create some disturbance, and they will affect the situation on the board. I'll explain what the special effects that they can create are, starting from this card here, that is the Savior, and it's the easiest to explain because what the Savior does is to annul the effect of any other card. Somebody plays one of these cards and you don't like it, you play the Savior, the effect of that other card is annulled. This guy here, when played, will move a token, a player token, your own on somebody else's, by up to 3 cards. In this case, for example, I'm this player, but I don't like this token being here, I decide to move the player here, for example. Or this is the situation, I'm this player here, but I want to be there, then I play this demon here on myself, and then I just move here. If I had two cards like this one in my hand and I played them at the same time, then actually I would be able to move any one token, mine or somebody else's, by up to 5 cards. And movement is always horizontal or vertical, never diagonal. There's nothing diagonal in this game. So as I said, this card can be stopped by this card here, but it could also be stopped by this card here. So if you had this card and somebody plays this card, you don't like what they're doing with that card, you play this card, and this also annuls this other card here. However, this demon here, Princess Ironfang, can also be played for its own effect, which is to move any one card that has a token on it. It's very important, not any card. It has to have a token on it, to move it from a position where it would be legal to remove it to another position where it would be legal to place it. I'll explain. For example, if this is the situation on the board, I would not be allowed to play this card to move this card and this token here, because I would leave a card that is attached only diagonally, which is illegal. But I would be able, for example, to move this other card here anywhere I want. So, for example, I don't know, here, this would be legal placements. Then you have these other cards here, the red boys, and what they do, quite simply, is they kill disciples. They look all cute, but don't be fooled, they're pretty mean. Each red boy has a symbol of a specific disciple here at the bottom right corner, and that indicates the disciple that they can kill. So if I had this guy in my hand, I decide to play it, I play it on this other card, and simply enough, the card is removed. Unless somebody who owns this card here doesn't like what I'm doing with that guy, then somebody plays the savior and the red boy is eliminated and the effect doesn't take place. Otherwise, this card is a goner. No, it couldn't be, because it would leave an illegal position. I could not even play on this guy because I would leave a token without a card, so in this case I wouldn't be able to play that red boy soldier actually. But this is the situation. I play it here and then this card is eliminated. This is the situation. I play this other card, then I can eliminate that guy there. Also, if I have two red boys in my hand and I decide to play them at the same time, then they can kill any one disciple, disregarding what the symbols at the bottom of the cards are. Once you're done playing cards, then you can move your token by one card, horizontally or vertically, never ever diagonally. Then you can discard as many non-disciple cards that you want, you still have in your hand. Then you fill up your hand up to 3 cards and your turn is over. At that point the turn goes to the next player, who goes through the same sequence. And now, pretty important thing, we get to finally talk about what you're trying to do by playing those cards and moving those cards and those tokens. What you're trying to do is to obtain this configuration here on the board. Of course there will be many other cards around those ones at that point, but what you're looking for is this configuration here. I place it horizontal just because it would fit better with the frame of the camera. What you're trying to achieve is to have 4 cards, 4 individual cards representing one disciple in a row. So a monkey, horse, soldier, and pig. No doubles, just 1 per. And that line intersects another line of 4 cards representing each individual disciple: horse, pig, soldier, and monkey. When that happens, you need to have your token at the intersection between the 2 rows. The first player that achieves that ends the round. At that point the round is over and everybody scores points. Each disciple, as you can see, has a certain number of rolls here, or in several cases a certain number of flames here. The rolls represent the positive points that the player scores, and these represent the negative points. For example, in this case, this is the situation. The red player has scored 2, 3, 5, 7, 8, 10, because if you're the scoring player, then you count that card twice. So we said 10 minus 1 is 9, 10. This player scored 10 points. That you record on this ultra cute scoring board. Other players score in the same exact way, which is the score point for every single individual non-repeated disciple that is aligned with their token. But since they are not in this position here, there are less disciples they are aligned with, so they will probably score less points. Suppose, for example, that we have a player there, and this is the situation on the board when the game is over. Then this player will score all of these cards here because they're still individual disciples that are aligned with him, so it would be 1, -1 is 0, 2 and 3. Then he cannot score this card twice, only the player that ends the round can score a card twice, so we set 3 points. Then he can add this once and it goes to 5, 6, and then he cannot score this one because it's a double. He would be able to score only one of these 2 horses. So this would be the score for that player. Officially, the game is played in a number of rounds that changes depending on the number of players, and at the end you see who's the player that scored more points than anybody else. But what I really like actually is the flexibility, because playing a single round in which you just score once by creating that configuration, it gives you a short, quick, but perfectly satisfactory gaming experience. You feel that you really played a game, not it was an incomplete thing. So you can play one round and be kind of happy, which really makes this game the ultimate filler. When players know what they're doing, usually a round may take 5-7 minutes, so trust me, there aren't many other games that you can take out of the box, set up, play and put back in the box in literally 10 minutes. So in gaming events, sometimes you just squeeze in a round of Mountain of Inferno, just like this, between other games. Otherwise, at home, I just play with my wife for hours and hours and hours. We just keep playing a round after the other. But luckily enough, this game is fun, and luckily enough, it has enough variety that really different rounds will play very differently from one another. Sometimes you have cards that form a huge blob there, and the tokens are almost not moving. The players just keep building cards around. Sometimes you have configurations that look like an octopus with branches and tentacles going all around, and the players moving very far from one another. Sometimes it looks like a crossword puzzle with holes instead of the black squares. There is really a lot of variety, and actually for a game this light, this simple and this fast, it can create some very interesting puzzles. Now this is a game that I would definitely recommend for 2 players. To me, this is the ultimate play with your spouse, a 2-player game. With more than 2 players, paradoxically, it can lend itself to a little bit of analysis paralysis, because by the time the game goes back to you, the board will have changed so much that you really basically have to start analyzing the board from scratch by the time it gets to you. Pre-planning doesn't really work very well because things change so fast. So a game this light, I know it's not really a game that I feel like sitting there and waiting for too long before I can play my next card. Also, because of this, with more than 2 players, you tend to have the feel that you're not as much in control. The board changes so much. It's really more about grabbing opportunities that are showing up when it's your turn based on what other people did, rather than any sort of medium or let alone long-term planning. With 2 players, this really doesn't happen, and the game is really interesting because of that, because you have the element of luck. If you don't get the right cards, you don't get them, but you can do some planning. The other player will have a harder time getting in the way of what you're trying to build, but the contrary is true. So if you see that a player doing something that you don't like, then it's gonna take you more efforts to be able to prevent certain configurations from being formed on the board. So there are a lot of interesting things. As a 2-player game, this is definitely one of my favorites, if not the favorite game in this category, and I would definitely highly recommend it.